In a troubling escalation of U.S. South Africa relations, which were already hanging by a thread, a controversial bill to sanction South Africa has just cleared a major hurdle in the United States Congress. Known as the U.S. South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act of 2025, this bill, if it becomes law, could send shockwaves through diplomatic circles and shake the very foundation of America's relationship with one of Africa's most important nations. Could this be the beginning of a diplomatic divorce? And what does it say about how Washington now views Pretoria? The bill was first introduced into Congress on April 3, 2025, by Republican Representative Ronny Jackson, a vocal Trump ally known for his hardline views. This was just the beginning. From there, the bill was passed on to the Committees on Foreign Affairs and the Judiciary. Fast forward to now, and Jackson has proudly announced that his bill has been approved by the Foreign Affairs Committee, marking its first legislative victory on the road to becoming law. This isn't just symbolic. It's a sign that some serious voices in Washington are ready to take South Africa to task. But why now? And what pushed the U.S. Congress to even consider such drastic action? According to those supporting the bill, South Africa has effectively abandoned its alliance with the U.S. in favor of what they label as authoritarian regimes. They point to South Africa's strengthening ties with China and Russia, its joint military drills with these countries, and its recent decision to downgrade diplomatic ties with Taiwan. The ruling ANC's open dialogues with Hamas have also come under fire. And let's not forget South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, which many in the American establishment saw as a direct slap in the face to one of the U.S. closest allies. With all these developments, the bill's proponents argue it's time to hit back and hard. But is this about accountability as they claim, or is it retaliation dressed up as principle? Representative Jackson, though careful not to use direct threats, made it clear that this bill would give President Trump the tools needed to hold South Africa accountable. For him and his allies, the message is simple: no more turning a blind eye to what they see as betrayal. The bill aims to reassess the entirety of U.S. South Africa relations and even target certain ANC leaders and government officials for potential sanctions. But beneath the surface, could this be more about Trump's broader foreign policy agenda, one that seeks to reshape global alliances along new ideological lines? Despite its momentum, not everyone in Washington is clapping. Critics of the bill argue it's too heavy-handed and risks pushing South Africa even further away from the West. They suggest diplomacy, not punishment, should be the tool of engagement. After all, isn't South Africa still part of the African Growth and Opportunity Act framework? Aren't there already mechanisms in place to express disapproval without turning to outright sanctions? Even those who agree that South Africa's recent moves are problematic worry that this bill could backfire spectacularly. Opponents stress that the bill could derail delicate trade negotiations and undo decades of diplomatic progress. They also note the risk of driving South Africa straight into the open arms of Beijing and Moscow, further entrenching a global split that many hoped could be avoided. Ironically, even those who voted against the bill admit that Pretoria's foreign policy has become increasingly provocative, especially under the current ANC leadership. But does that justify this legislative firebomb? Or is this just the latest episode in an increasingly aggressive American foreign policy under Trump's second term? Since Donald Trump's return to the White House in early 2025, U.S. South Africa relations have sharply deteriorated due to a series of controversial moves by Washington, including denying visas to South African envoys, cutting key development aid like PEPFAR, imposing heavy tariffs, and suspending military support. Tensions have worsened further over Trump's executive order offering asylum to white South Africans, the expulsion of South Africa's ambassador, and mounting U.S. outrage over South Africa's ties with China and Russia, its neutrality on the Ukraine war, and its genocide case against Israel, all of which have fueled a growing diplomatic rift. If the bill makes it all the way into law, the consequences could be seismic. South Africa could face targeted sanctions, a freeze in trade relations, and potentially even a suspension from African Growth and Opportunity Act benefits. Could we see ambassadors recalled? Could military and intelligence cooperation grind to a halt? And more broadly, could this bill usher in a new era of U.S.-Africa tensions, where countries are punished for exercising foreign policy independence? One thing is clear: if this bill becomes law, the dominoes won't stop with Pretoria. And how might South Africa respond? So far, they kept quiet about the bill's progress, perhaps trying not to fan the flames. But anyone familiar with South African politics knows they won't remain silent for long, especially not if sanctions are slapped on their officials. Would President Ramaphosa issue a diplomatic rebuke? Would South Africa double down on its BRICS alliances with China, Russia, and others? The silence now is likely the calm before a serious storm. From the U.S. perspective, especially under Trump's current leadership, this bill is about enforcing loyalty and drawing clear lines in the sand. If you're not with us, you're against us. It's a vision of foreign policy that leaves little room for nuance or regional complexities. South Africa's decision to engage with China or Russia is seen not as strategic balancing, but as betrayal. And their legal battle against Israel. That's the last straw. From the South African side, this is a test of sovereignty. Pretoria might argue it has every right to engage whoever it wants, just as the U.S. does. Why is it okay for Washington to have cozy ties with Saudi Arabia, but a problem when South Africa holds joint drills with China? The question of double standards is one that many African nations are watching closely. Then there's the perspective of South Africa's allies: Russia, China, Iran, and even other BRICS nations like Brazil and India. These countries might view the bill as confirmation that the U.S. cannot be trusted to allow multipolarity. If Washington is willing to punish South Africa for choosing its own foreign policy, who's next? Could this bill, in fact, speed up the formation of alternative global alliances? Will more African nations start asking if they, too, could face U.S. punishment for not falling in line? Ultimately, this bill is not just about South Africa. It's about how the world sees Africa and how Africa responds. It's about a global shift in power and the rising assertiveness of African nations that no longer want to be treated like pawns in someone else's geopolitical chess game. Whether this bill becomes law or not, one thing is certain: the days of quiet diplomacy are over. The gloves are off, and the world is watching. Your perspective matters. What do you make of America's move to sanction South Africa? Share your thoughts and insights in the comments section below. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the New Africa channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our informative future videos. Stay informed, stay engaged, and thank you for watching.